Imagine this. You wake up one morning, stretch your arms, and look around your room. Everything is exactly where you left it. The books stacked unevenly on the nightstand, the worn-out jeans draped over a chair, the familiar creases in your bed sheets. You grab your phone, scroll through your notifications, and let the usual flood of thoughts dictate your morning. But then, something shifts. A single, invasive thought creeps into your mind like a shadow at dawn. What if none of this is real? Not in a sci-fi, you're living in a simulation way. No, something far more personal, far more unsettling. What if everything you believe about yourself is a lie? Not just small things, your favorite music, your job preferences, your taste in books, but the fundamental core of who you think you are. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your personality, your deepest fears and desires. What if they weren't chosen by you, but carefully planted, shaped, conditioned into existence by forces you never questioned? Think about it. From the moment you were born, you have been absorbing words, ideas, labels. You're smart, you're shy, you're not athletic, you're the responsible one. These statements, repeated over years, fused into something you call your identity. But what if you never stopped to ask, who decided these things about me? Did you? Or was it your parents, teachers, friends, society? And if they did, if everything you believe about yourself was given to you, then who are you really? The thought lingers. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, staring into your own eyes, and realizing that the person staring back is nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. A story written by others, repeated so many times that you accepted it as the truth. But if that story isn't real, if you strip away every expectation, every label, every piece of conditioning, what remains? Do you still exist without the script? Or are you just a collection of borrowed beliefs, a reflection of what the world has told you to be? The weight of this question presses against your mind like an iron vice. If your identity has been shaped by external forces, then how much of your suffering has been self-imposed? Think about your insecurities, the fears that whisper in the back of your mind. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. I don't deserve happiness. These thoughts feel personal, deeply yours, but are they? Or are they echoes of someone else's doubts, someone else's limitations, passed down to you like a family heirloom? Maybe that teacher who once told you, "You're not good at math," unknowingly set the trajectory of your entire relationship with numbers. Maybe that childhood rejection convinced you, "I'm not lovable," and you carried that belief for decades, never questioning its origin. Now imagine this. What if you had never heard those words? Would you be a different person? Would you have made different choices? Would your life right now be something entirely unrecognizable? And if the answer is yes, if your identity is that fragile, that malleable, then how can you be sure that who you are today is anything more than a construct? Perhaps you were never you at all. Perhaps you were just shaped, sculpted, molded, programmed into believing a version of yourself that was never truly yours to begin with. This realization is not just philosophical, it's existential. Because if you are not who you thought you were, then what happens next? If your beliefs about yourself were handed to you, then does that mean you can rewrite them? And if you can rewrite them, who do you become when you finally strip away the lies? The realization lingers, unsettling. If everything you believe about yourself is a construct, a carefully arranged illusion, then who is the architect? And more importantly, why? To understand this, we must journey into the very foundations of human psychology and philosophy, where thinkers like Carl Jung, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Aldous Huxley warned us about the invisible forces that shape our existence. Forces that operate in the shadows, unseen yet omnipresent, scripting the narratives of our lives long before we even realize a script exists. And the most dangerous part? We mistake these narratives for truth. The manufactured self, a prison built from words. From the moment we are born, we exist in a world of language. Words are the building blocks of identity, the invisible threads weaving together our perception of reality. You are given a name, a gender, a nationality. You are told which behaviors are good and which are bad. You are praised when you conform, scolded when you deviate. And so, without realizing it, you begin to edit yourself. You absorb labels like a sponge, internalizing expectations, learning what earns love and what invites rejection. Over time, this becomes your inner voice, an unconscious set of beliefs so deeply ingrained that you stop questioning them. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to navigate society. It is not our true self, but rather a socially acceptable version of who we are, carefully curated to gain approval and avoid rejection. But what happens when we spend so long wearing the mask that we forget there was ever something underneath? We become trapped, not by physical chains, but by mental ones, constructed from the words of others, reinforced by the fear of stepping beyond them. And so we live our lives not as ourselves, but as performers in a play we never auditioned for. Nietzsche's warning, the death of the authentic self. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this problem with chilling clarity. He warned that society does not want individuals who think freely. It wants obedient participants. It rewards conformity and punishes those who dare to break the script. He called this the herd mentality, the unconscious tendency to adopt the beliefs, values, and fears of the majority without ever questioning them. You don't choose your political views, you inherit them from your environment. You don't choose your definition of success, it is given to you by culture, media, and tradition. You don't choose your self-worth, it is dictated by how well you fit the standards of those around you. And so, the more you conform, the more you lose yourself. Nietzsche feared that most people would never wake up from this illusion, that they would spend their entire lives serving an identity that was never truly theirs, mistaking societal validation for personal fulfillment. But for those who do wake up, an even greater challenge emerges. How do you break free? The fear of the unknown self. Even if you recognize the illusion, there is a reason most people never escape it. Fear. It is terrifying to dismantle the self, to tear away the familiar and step into the unknown. If everything you believed about yourself is a lie, then what happens when you remove it? A void remains. Jean-Paul Sartre called this radical freedom, the unsettling realization that without societal scripts, you are entirely responsible for defining your own identity. There are no rules, no predetermined paths, no safety nets, and this terrifies people. So instead of embracing freedom, most choose the comfort of certainty, even if that certainty is false. They cling to old identities, even when they bring suffering, because at least they are familiar. Think about it. How many people stay in toxic relationships because they fear being alone? How many people settle for unfulfilling careers because they fear the unknown? How many people continue destructive habits because change feels too uncertain, too dangerous? People do not fear being trapped. They fear what happens when there are no walls left to hold them in. This is why so many spend their lives avoiding self-reflection, because to question the self is to risk losing it altogether. The lies you tell yourself to stay comfortable. But here's the paradox. The more you resist the truth, the more it controls you. Because when you avoid questioning, your beliefs, your identity becomes rigid, fragile, easily shattered. You cling to old narratives even when they no longer serve you, because the alternative, the unknown, is too terrifying to face. So you tell yourself lies. This is just the way I am. No, this is the way you were conditioned to be. I can't change. No, change is uncomfortable, so you avoid it. I know who I am. No, you know who you have been told to be. And the worst lie of all, if I let go of this identity, I will lose myself. But the truth is the opposite. Only by letting go of the false self can you finally discover the real one. The deepening crisis. Where do you go from here? So now the question is no longer, who am I? But rather, what am I willing to give? Up to find out? Because once you see the illusion, you cannot unsee it. Once you recognize that your identity is a collection of borrowed beliefs, the walls of your mental prison begin to crack. But escaping the illusion is not easy. It requires something most people are unwilling to do, to let go of everything they thought was true and step into the terrifying unknown. And that is where true freedom begins. But before you can break free, you must first understand the full extent of the trap. Because what if the illusion isn't just shaping your thoughts? What if it's shaping the entire world around you? Imagine walking through a city where every building is made of mirrors. At first, it seems beautiful. Everywhere you turn, you see reflections of yourself. But then you start to notice something disturbing. No matter where you go, no matter how far you travel, you never actually see anything new, only endless variations of your own image, distorted and reshaped by the mirrors. This is the world you live in, not physically but psychologically. Your beliefs, your thoughts, your self-image, they are not yours. They are reflections of the environment that raised you, the culture that shaped you, the people who influenced you. Every decision you make, every habit you reinforce, is filtered through these unseen mirrors of conditioning. And the more you accept these reflections as truth, the less you actually see reality. But here's where it gets even worse. These mirrors are not passive. They do not just reflect. You are being watched, measured and controlled by the very world that shaped you. And if you dare to question the illusion, the system fights back. The silent war for your mind. There is a reason why most people never wake up from this psychological trap. It is not because they are incapable of seeing the truth. It is because they have been trained to fear it. From birth, we are conditioned to seek approval and avoid rejection. This is not just social etiquette, it is biological survival. In early human history, being cast out from the tribe meant certain death. Those who conformed, who obeyed, who followed the script, survived. And so, evolution rewarded compliance. This instinct still governs us today. It is why people seek validation on social media. It is why most people would rather be wrong with the majority than right alone. It is why challenging societal beliefs feels dangerous, even when the logic is undeniable, because stepping outside the illusion, questioning the mirrors, means risking exile. And that is something the human mind, on a primal level, is terrified of. So, without realizing it, we self-police our own thoughts. We ridicule those who think differently. We reject ideas that threaten our worldview. We dismiss truths that make us uncomfortable. And the system thrives on this. It doesn't need to force you to stay asleep. You will do it voluntarily because you have been trained to fear the alternative. The identity trap. Why people stay stuck. But here is the most insidious part of all. Even when people realize the illusion, most still refuse to leave it. Why? Because the false self, the identity shaped by conditioning, feels safe. Imagine a prisoner who has spent decades inside a cell. One day, the doors are thrown open. They are free, but as they step outside, an unbearable fear grips them. The outside world is unknown, unpredictable, full of dangers. And so, they voluntarily return to the cell, because at least in prison they know the rules. This is what happens with the conditioned self. Even when people realize that their beliefs, their fears, their limitations were given to them, they cling to them anyway. Because stepping into true freedom means stepping into the unknown. It means taking full responsibility for your mind. It means abandoning old excuses. It means facing the terrifying truth that you are not who you thought you were. And most people would rather live in a comfortable lie than endure the pain of breaking free. How this shapes your reality without you. Realizing the consequences of this go far beyond the individual. Entire societies are built on false selves, on people who never question their beliefs, never step beyond the walls of conditioning. And when an entire world operates this way, the illusion becomes self-sustaining. Son, the economy thrives on your insecurities. Advertisers do not sell you products, they sell you identities. They tell you who you should be, what you should desire, what will make you worthy of love, success, and happiness. And because you never questioned your inherited identity, you spend your entire life chasing illusions, buying things to fill the void left by a self you never truly discovered. 2. The system rewards conformity, not truth. From childhood, you are taught what to think, not how to think. Schools reward obedience, workplaces value compliance, and social structures reinforce stability over individuality. This is why the greatest minds in history, Nietzsche, Jung, Schopenhauer, Huxley, were often outcasts, criticized in their time, only to be recognized as geniuses once the world caught up. Truth is rarely popular. It is dangerous to a system built on lies. 3. People mistake comfort for meaning. In a world where the majority follows pre-written scripts, life becomes predictable. People pursue the same goals, follow the same paths, experience the same patterns of success and failure. But predictability is not fulfillment. And this is why so many people, even those who do everything right, get the job, build the family, follow the rules, end up feeling empty. Because they never chose their own path. They simply followed the script handed to them. The unspoken cost of living a lie. And so the most terrifying consequence is this. Most people will never know who they truly are. They will go through life wearing masks, playing roles, mistaking their conditioning for authentic existence. They will never hear their own voice beneath the noise of external expectations. And at the end of it all, when they look back, they will wonder, was any of it real? Was it their life they lived, or simply the one they were told to live? And the final, most haunting question, if they had known the truth earlier, what might they have become? But here's the thing, you are not most people. And now that you see the illusion, the real question is no longer, what if everything you believe about yourself is a lie? It is, what are you going to do about it? You've seen the illusion. You've recognized the walls that have kept you caged. Built, not from brick and steel, but from words, beliefs, and silent expectations. You've felt the unsettling truth. You have never been truly free. And now, a question stands before you like a doorway at the edge of a vast unknown. Will you break free, or will you turn back? Most people, even after glimpsing the truth, choose to retreat. They convince themselves that the comfort of the familiar is better than the chaos of the unknown. They tell themselves, maybe the illusion isn't so bad, and slip back into the scripted existence they know so well. But for a rare few, those willing to embrace the terrifying freedom of self-reconstruction, a new path opens. A path without pre-written rules, without inherited limitations, a path where you decide who you become. But how do you begin? How do you strip away the false self without losing everything in the process? The answer is radical, counterintuitive, and deeply uncomfortable. It requires you to do something you were never taught to do. Step 1. Kill the old self. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Your entire life, you have lived as a passenger in your own mind. You have followed scripts written by others, thinking they were your own choices. If you want to break free, you must become aware of these unconscious forces, and that means doing something most people will never dare to do. You must let your old identity die, not physically, but psychologically. Question every belief you hold about yourself. Is it truly yours, or was it given to you? Observe your thoughts as if they belong to someone else. Do they serve you, or do they serve the system that shaped you? Detach from the stories you've told yourself. The idea that you are this kind of person, or not good at that. Who told you that? Who benefits from you believing it? This process is painful. It will feel like losing yourself, because in many ways you are. But destruction is not the end. It is the beginning. Because once the false self dies, something else emerges. Something real. Step 2. Embrace the abyss of not knowing. Most people fear uncertainty. They need labels, identities, a fixed sense of self to feel safe. But the truth is, not knowing who you are is the most powerful place you can be, because in that space of emptiness, anything is possible. Nietzsche called this state becoming the Übermensch, the process of rising beyond inherited identities. To create yourself anew, he believed that to truly live, one must destroy old values, old scripts, and invent new ones that are truly their own. This means you must sit with the discomfort of the unknown. You must resist the urge to immediately construct a new identity just to fill the void. Instead, allow yourself to exist without labels, without rigid beliefs, without certainty. Most people cannot do this. They panic, they grasp for anything familiar. But those who can endure the abyss, they emerge as something unrecognizable to their former selves, self-made, unshackled, free. Step 3. Reclaim control of your mind. You have been programmed from birth to think in a certain way, to see reality through a particular lens. If you want true freedom, you must take back control. How? Master your inner dialogue. Every day, your thoughts shape your reality. If you tell yourself, I can't do this, you won't. If you tell yourself, I don't deserve happiness, you will sabotage yourself. Change the narrative. Interrupt negative thoughts. Ask yourself, would I believe this if I had never been told it? Detox from external influence. Stop consuming content that reinforces limiting beliefs. Distance yourself from people who only see the old version of you. Avoid environments that pressure you to conform. You cannot rebuild yourself in the same space that created your false identity. Expose yourself to new ideas. Read philosophy that challenges your assumptions. Travel to places where no one knows who you are. Learn skills that contradict the identity you once believed was permanent. The more perspectives you experience, the more you realize you are not one fixed thing. You are infinite possibilities. Step 4. Live without permission. Society has conditioned you to ask for permission before being yourself. Permission to express your thoughts. Permission to live in a way that doesn't fit expectations. Permission to create a life outside the script. But here's the truth. You do not need permission to exist freely. No one is coming to give it to you. No external authority will ever say, yes, you are allowed to think for yourself now. So stop waiting, stop apologizing. Say what you actually believe, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Do what excites you, even if it contradicts who you used to be. Live as if you owe no one an explanation, because you don't. The point of no return. Once you begin this process, you can never go back. You will no longer fit into the conversations, the environments, the mindsets that once felt normal. You will see through the illusion of societal conditioning, and it will no longer hold power over you. And most importantly, you will realize that everything you need was always inside you. The false self was never real. The mirrors were never reality. And now you are free. But freedom is only the beginning, because there is one last truth left to face, and it is the most powerful of all. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, empty space. The world you once knew, the labels, the expectations, the false identities, has crumbled behind you. For the first time, you are unshackled from the past. You have no script, no inherited beliefs telling you who you are supposed to be. And then, a terrifying thought strikes you. If I am not who I was told to be, then who am I? This is where most people panic. They mistake emptiness for loss. They fear the void left behind when the false self dies. But here is the ultimate truth, the realization that will set you free once and for all. The void is not empty. It is full of infinite possibility. Because the absence of a pre-written identity does not mean you are nothing. It means you can become anything. This is not destruction. This is creation. The great lie that kept you small. All your life, you have been told that who you are is fixed, that your identity is a set of unchangeable traits, that your potential has a ceiling, but that was never true. The only thing that was ever real was your ability to change, to evolve, to create yourself anew. The system wanted you to believe you were static, because static people are predictable, controllable. But once you see through the lie, once you realize you are fluid, limitless, undefined, you become untouchable. Nothing controls you anymore. Not society, not old conditioning, not even your past self. Because you are no longer a product of your past. You are now the author of your future. You were never broken, only unfinished. The world teaches you to believe you are broken, that you need fixing, that something is missing, and that something can only be found outside of you. But this was the greatest deception of all. You were never broken. You were simply unfinished. You mistook an incomplete story for a tragedy, but the pen is in your hands now. You are no longer the character in someone else's novel. You are the writer of your own existence. So the question is no longer, who am I? The real question is, who do I want to become? Your new reality. You are the creator. Now you stand before an open canvas. No inherited beliefs, no societal scripts, no limitations, just possibility. And this is where most people hesitate, because with absolute freedom comes absolute responsibility. There is no more blaming parents, teachers, governments, or the past. There is no more waiting for permission. You are free, but freedom is terrifying if you are not ready to use it. So, what will you do with it? The final decision. Will you return or evolve? Most people, even after realizing the illusion, choose to return to it. They go back to old habits, old identities, old conditioning, not because they don't see the truth, but because the truth requires courage. It is easier to be told who you are than to define it yourself. It is easier to follow the script than to write your own. It is easier to live in a comfortable lie than an uncomfortable truth. So now, the choice is yours. You can go back, pretend you never saw the illusion, continue living inside the framework you were given. It will be easier, quieter. The world will welcome you back into the illusion with open arms. Or you can step into the unknown, into radical self-creation, into a life where you are no longer the product of your environment, but the master of your own mind. This path is not easy. It is lonely, disorienting, and without guarantees. But it is also the only path where you will ever truly live. The last thought that will stay with you forever. So here you are. The illusion is shattered. The script is burned. The false self is gone. And now, a final haunting question remains. If you are no longer who you were told to be, who will you become? Because from this moment on, everything is up to you. The story is unwritten, the page is blank, and the pen is finally in your hands. End.